Hello, this is astrologer coach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming new moon in 4.5 degrees of Aquarius, which will be exact on January 24th at 4:42 p.m. East Coast time in the US, which is also New York time, and 9:42 p.m. London time. Now, of course, the new moon is always the beginning of a new moon cycle. And this particular new moon is also the end of eclipse season, yaha. And so that means that we've received our consciousness upgrades and we can now move forward with any intentions that we set in late December at the time of the solar eclipse in Capricorn. So if you have set any intentions at that time, feel free to move forward with these intentions now. And as always with the new moon, it is an introverted time, so we want to actually go within. We want to meditate or just kind of stay more quiet within ourselves, and we want to align ourselves with what we're experiencing, energetically speaking, during the time of the new moon, because it will inform the next 28 days. So we will talk, of course, also about setting intentions for this new moon cycle. And the best and most potent time to do so, we'll talk about that towards the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. And if you want to take advantage of the timestamps that I have added to the description part of the video, feel free to do so in case you want to watch the video in shorter sequences or you want to hop back and forth between different parts in the video. The timestamps are perfect for that. All right, so let's get started with the new moon in freedom-loving, forward-thinking Aquarius. We have our eye on the future with Aquarius. Aquarius is very future vision-oriented, and the highest, lightest vibration of Aquarius gives us the opportunity to see a very clear vision for our life, and we're ready to make the relevant improvements in accordance to what that vision is. So Aquarius also deals with the power of ideals, technology, and inventions. And we also are interested in the collective focus on changing group consciousness. So these are some Aquarian themes. Now, at its best, Aquarius stands for equality and diversity, innovation and reform, collaboration and community, and we strive for progress. So the challenge here is to unite and transcend differences of gender, race, cultural or religious backgrounds, rather than separating us from others or ostracizing those who are different from us. So it's important because it has sort of like Aquarius has a group consciousness, right? So we want to make sure that whoever is not in the group that we identify with or that we belong or think we belong to, that we're not ostracizing those that are not inside that group. So to move even further into a higher and lighter Aquarian vibration, you want to really ask yourself the following questions. Where am I called to make a difference? And this could be anywhere, any area of your life. It could be something really small or something really large. You know, we can make a difference in our lives in so many ways, you know, just by sending out a smile or just by, you know, saying a nice, kind word to a neighbor or to a loved one. You know, there's many ways we can make a difference. But where do you feel you're being called to make a difference in your life? And what could I, as an individual, do for humanity? And this is a very large question, of course, because humanity sounds like, oh my God, that's a lot, right? How can I, as an individual, right, make a difference for humanity? That sometimes seems a bit of an overwhelming question, right? But if we think of you know, that there are small steps that can create bigger steps, and then these bigger steps create shifts, right? So if we think about smaller steps that I as an individual can take, right? So ask yourself, what could I as an individual do for humanity? And think small steps that you could take They could lead to larger steps. And how might group consciousness help humanity make progress? And where might I begin? Because remember, when we talk about group consciousness means that you as the individual are a part of that, right? So every thought that you have or every vision that you have about the future is part of that group consciousness. So where can you begin personally, or me as the individual, where can I begin to create a group consciousness that's healthy and that's creating a better future for all of humanity? Now, at a denser Aquarian vibration, we feel like outsiders, as though we don't fit in necessarily. We don't fit into any kind of group. Maybe we're a little too different. We think like, there's too much of a difference between me and certain groups or other people. And we want to rebel against social structures that don't fit with our own personal vision. And we tend to resist change. So on a denser vibration with Aquarius, these are some of the things that can show up or occur. And just remember with like lighter and denser vibrations, or higher or lower, or whatever you want to call it, I like to use the word lighter and denser only because it's just energy, it's vibration, right? Which means it's not good or bad. It's just that, when something is more tensed up, when we're, for example, when you're stressed as a human being, your body tends to tense up. Doesn't mean that your body is in a bad condition, but it just means that there is less energy that's moving around, or less energy that can kind of like allow things to move through. And so the denser energy of a sign represents sort of like when we're not at our best, or when we're stressed, or when we're hungry, or when we're tired, right? We tend to go sometimes into these denser vibrations of a sign. And that means that all of us experience that, right? All of us experience the lighter and the denser vibrations of each sign, depending on where we're at personally in our own, energetic, abundance, or how we're feeling about life, how we're feeling about ourselves. So it depends, right? It can be different from day to day for some of us, can be different from months to months for others, right? So, so basically, with the denser vibration of Aquarius, we get trapped when we don't take responsibility for our part in the collective story, right? Because the collective is, each one of us is part of the collective. We can't help that, right? That's just how it is. But if we don't take responsibility for the part that we play, so to speak, and when we're not honoring our individual genius and our individual gifts, right, or our unique contributions to society, if we're not actually seeing that, or the unique contributions that we're making to our communities, right? So, because society, again, that's a big word, right? That's a lot of people. But we all interact within our communities. So if we don't take responsibility for the role that we're playing within those fields, then we tend to get trapped in this denser vibration of Aquarius as well. So what you can ask yourself here is, what lies between me and accessing my divine genius? And what if I allowed myself to be both different and connected to others? And this question has actually been really important in my life recently, kind of allowing myself to not be like certain people, but to allow myself to still connect to people in a healthy, neutral way, even though there seems to be quite a difference between me and them. And so we want to take a look at that, because there are so many people out there who are obviously different from us, right? Not everybody can be exactly like we are, and how we think and what we envision for life and for ourselves. There are, a lot of different types of seeds in the universe. So what if I allowed myself to be both different and connected to others? And what if taking responsibility for how things are currently was the perfect jumping start for a better future? And that is a very relevant question right now, I think, with all these planets that we also have in Capricorn, right? Because, the Aquarian nature is to be very idealistic and to be very sort of like dreaming and looking into, the future that could be, without maybe necessarily taking in what actually is so. And this is Capricorn's job, right? And with having this many planets in Capricorn right now, this is a really good idea for us to do the reality check first and take responsibility for how things are currently, and then use that as a jumping off point, right? So feel free to ask yourself, what if taking responsibility for how things are was the perfect jumping start for a better future? Now, I always say this in my videos, but for those of you who are new to my channel and new to my videos, feel free to journal, meditate, or simply align yourself with these questions for the next 4 weeks. There's more questions to come, but I just wanted to make sure that you understand, these questions are not for you to sit there and answer them right away and write down what the answers are. It's more of an investigation into the energies, and it's more of a trying to intuitively align yourself with what these energies are all about, and allowing the answers to come to you through your intuitive knowingness. Now, every single one of us, of course, has a special gift. It's kind of like a spark. It's like something unique that we are. And so when we access this divine genius, and we share that with the world, we can make quantum leaps of insight and embark on really remarkable collaborations with other people. But it's very important that we really allow ourselves to look at what this uniqueness is. What is that spark? And if we don't know what that is, if you sit there and you go, well, I don't know, I don't really think I have that, right? Then just allow that to present itself to you. Keep asking the question, what is my unique spark? Or keep asking other people that are really good friends, or really people that you really trust. Ask them, what do you think is my unique spark? I don't feel like I have one, right? If that's a question for you, right, then definitely engage in that, but be patient until you really find that place in you that is like, oh yes, this is unique about me. And also know that the unique spark doesn't have to be this huge thing, right? It can be something very subtle as well. Now ask yourself, how does my divine genius make itself known? And again, if you don't know the answer to that question, that's okay. Just keep tapping into that question through meditation or through journaling and see what shows up. So how does my divine genius make itself known, and where does it show up? And what if different was exactly what the world needed right now from me, if it were to evolve and progress? Now, if you want to have access to the new moon questions from this video in writing, because sometimes that can be helpful if you want to meditate on stuff or if you want to journal on things. If you want to have access to those questions in writing, and you also might want to have access to the full moon videos every month, which are currently only available to members, feel free to check out our various levels of membership on my website at astrologercoach.com and see if you can find something that's a good fit for you. There are different, levels of, prices, and also what you're getting for each level of membership. That you get obviously more with paying more. So check to see what's in alignment with you. If you're already a member, check your membership portal by signing into your account. You will find all my posts inside the My Content tab, and you can click on each of these posts and then it will take you there on the website. Now, the new moon questions are available via the New Moon in Aquarius article, which will be posted at the very latest by January 21st. So I usually recommend not really engaging with the questions until after the new moon has already been exact. You can obviously watch the video before the new moon becomes exact, but if you want to actually journal on the questions and meditate on the questions, I would say do that after the new moon is exact, because that's when you're entering the new moon energy. Now, back to the new moon. We have a bunch of aspects that you want to talk about to see how this new moon is impacting us for the next 28 days. One of the things that's happening this month is that Mercury, which is the planet of communication, makes a kind of a wide alignment with the sun and moon in Aquarius, but still close enough that we can say they influence each other, they're connecting in some way. So this is an opportunity for all of us to become more aware of our individual impact on the collective. Basically, we're all agents of change. We already are. We always are, if we choose to be. Now, it doesn't mean that every single person is going to make that choice, but if this is a calling for you and you want to be an agent of change in the world and for our future as the collective or as humans, then definitely step into that calling. And you'll know if it's your calling, right? Now, intelligence and communication abilities are quite strong for the next 4 weeks because of the Mercury component. Now, given that this alignment also takes place in Aquarius, we may feel particularly cool and collected and detached because it's more of an intellectual energy. So do your best to avoid arrogance or rigidity of thought. Focus on objectivity and a larger vision instead. Right? So if you find that you become a little bit standoffish or a little bit like I'm better than these people over there or this group over there or this human being or whatever, if you find that shows up in your thought process, right? Or if you get a little bit rigid about how you think a concept should be or how you think a vision of yours should be taken to the next level or whatever, if you find something like that showing up, just as best as you can, go into objectivity, go into what's the larger vision of what I can, connect with here. And ask yourself, what if my thoughts were like a radio station that others could tune into at any time? So thoughts, right? I mean, thoughts, we always think of thoughts as like they're private, like nobody can hear my thoughts. But of course, unfortunately, on an unconscious level, people can actually hear your thoughts. And so it's very important that we know that and that we're aware of that and that we're conscious about, what thoughts are we putting out there into the world? What thoughts do we want other people to tune into? So if that were so, if our thoughts were like a radio station that other people can tune into at any time, what would I choose to broadcast? And I think this is a really powerful question because, this is something we very often are pretty unconscious about, our own thoughts, because we do feel that they're private, because we don't consciously know what other people are thinking, but unconsciously we do. And if you tune into your feeling body, when someone has a negative thought about you or has a critical thought about something, if you tune into your body, you can feel that, right? There's like a sensing of that, even though you might not know exactly what they're thinking, unless, of course, you have a psychic ability and you're very tuned into that psychic ability. You might even know what other people are thinking. But for the majority of us who are not that tuned into our psychic bodies, we may feel it. And some of us may not even feel it. But there is, on an unconscious level, you will know. And even if you don't know, you kind of know that you have to kind of move away from that person. There's something in you that tells you, visually speaking, that you have to move away. So there is a knowingness, right? Whether we're conscious of it or not. So what if I consciously chose to envision a world in which I wished to live? And, when we say consciously choose to envision that, pictures, sounds, thoughts, feelings, right? Envisioning of something happens on all levels. And what if I did this for even just 5 minutes each day? What might happen if I chose to do that? And some of you might already do this, by the way. Now, if you think you're alone, and this is very much also in terms of the more denser Aquarian energy, if you think you're alone or that you're the only one who, whatever, is this way or thinks this way or does this in a particular way or has this issue or has these quirks or, has this particular experience, whatever it is that you might fill in the blank, right? Like whatever you might want to fill into that blank. Think again, there are around 7 billion people on this planet, and you are not alone ever. No matter what your vision, what your quirks, what your divine genius, no matter what you are broadcasting up here, right? There are others out there who are tuned into that same frequency. There's 7 billion people on this planet, right? So think about that. I mean, that's a lot of people. And so sometimes, it feels like, if in our own immediate community or if in our own family of origin or if in our circle of friends, all of a sudden we feel like we're not connecting with anybody, right? Then just remember there are 7 billion people out there. And just keep broadcasting the stuff that you want other people to connect to. And the people that want to connect to you, they will find you. They will connect to you. I mean, especially nowadays with technology, which of course is also ruled by Aquarius. With technology nowadays, it's like so easy to connect with all these 7 million people. So ask yourself, how can I inspire others to foster progress? What might become possible if a group of us came together to create meaningful change for everyone, perhaps even for all living things? And just remember, you're more powerful in numbers, right? And this is why Aquarius is group consciousness, because Aquarius understands that the more of you come together, like-minded people, if you come together, if you are on the same frequency, that becomes more powerful. And of course, if you are broadcasting on a frequency that's a really high vibrational frequency, and you connect with other people who do that too, that of course is going to be really wonderful for the planet. It's going to be really wonderful for the future and for humanity. So we need to connect with each other. So what might become possible if a group of us came together to create meaningful change for everyone, perhaps even for all living things? Now, Mercury also sextiles Mars in Sagittarius. That's another aspect in this new moon chart. And this gives us an opportunity to connect thought to action. And that's awesome, right? Because if we can connect what we're broadcasting up here with also a physical urge to act on it, body and mind align, words and deeds connect. If that happens, that can be very powerful. Now ask yourself, how could a mind that is stuck in old belief systems possibly help me figure out my future? Because one thing that we have to remember, that a lot of us don't realize this, but because our mind is so strongly conditioned by past experiences and by past traumas or by our upbringing and also by social doctrines, right? And things that we've been taught growing up, depending on where we grew up, right? What family, what country, what city, or what town or what countryside, right? Wherever we grow up, that influences our thinking, of course. And so we have to understand that if we don't allow the mind to get out of that conditioning or to get out of these old belief systems, how are we going to create a new future or a better future? Or how are we going to create a future that is not like the past? Because the mind, of course, the mind is what gets us there, but we kind of have to allow the mind to sort of continuously have like a refreshing of like what's actually here now without me going into these old belief systems or these old conditionings. So how could a mind that is stuck in old belief systems possibly help me figure out my future? And what if freeing my mind from the old order of things opened me to the future that is waiting to be created? So these are some really neat questions. And then what if I allowed my mind to be cleared of prejudice when visualizing my future? And the reason why I created this question was because sometimes when I think of my future, there's this doomed thing that goes on, right, in my mind. There's a part of my mind that can go into a very dark place or into a very sort of like critical or negative place. And then my future all of a sudden looks very fearful, right? It's sort of like a fearful future. So what if I allowed my mind to be cleared of prejudice when visualizing a future? Because it's sort of like when the mind goes into this prejudice, into this critical place, right? That's when we very often see a future that is not necessarily a high frequency future. So see if you want to play with that question, if that resonates with you. And of course, with all the questions, if they resonate with you, great, use them. If they don't resonate with you, feel free to discard them. Now, last question here is, what is a single action step that would bring me closer to creating that future right now? So whatever future we're currently visualizing, what is a single action step that would bring me closer to creating that future right now? And again, when I say single action step, could be really small, could be really big, could be anything in between. It really doesn't matter. So let's talk a little bit about another aspect here. Uranus, which is the modern ruler of Aquarius, is currently in Taurus. And right now with this new moon, Uranus squares the new moon. So this is interesting, right? Because the new moon's ruler squares the new moon. So this tells us that, there's definitely some challenges that we're experiencing here with this new moon. And if we redefine our need to fit in and belong, we can find a more authentic connection with our own values. Because here's what's happening, right? So Aquarius says, be a part of something large, a part of a group, part of humanity, right? Part of like a group consciousness. That's what Aquarius wants. But Uranus is in Taurus, and Taurus has to do with our values. It has to do with, what our talents, our values, our preferences, what we feel is in alignment with what we want. So how can we redefine our need to fit in and belong to a particular group, and find out more authentically what connects us to our own values? And so we're also invited to stay detached in our social dealings with others and honor our own individuality without making anyone else wrong for being different or for being themselves, right? Because each person that walks around, or each person that we encounter, they're being themselves because that's what they know to be, right? They're being themselves. And of course, most people who walk around unconsciously, who are not super conscious in every single moment who they are being and how they're being, right, with other people, they're just being themselves. And so it's very important to honor ourselves, be okay with ourselves and our own stuff, right? Because we're also being ourselves, but also let other people be themselves too. And so there's the challenge, right? Because there is a need to fit in, but yet we also want to allow there to be this, like I'm me, you're you, it's all good, we're good. So ask yourself, how could I honor my own values and allow others their values respecting their choices or preferences. How could I honor my own values and allow others theirs, respecting their choices or preferences? It's not always easy to do, but maybe something to journal on and to see what shows up. How can we get better at that? And are other people's choices and preferences really about me? Do I need to take them personally? And for all of you who have fixed signs in their birth charts, right? Like Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, these are fixed signs. You probably understand this better than most people. We tend to take things personally, right? Fixed signs tend to take things personally. There are other signs who do too, but fixed signs are very good at that. Now, are other people's choices and preferences really about me? Do I need to take them personally? And this is a great question that actually we can use all the time, because I'm sure this is something that shows up for most of us at some point in our lives. Now, could I give their choosing? So if other people are choosing something different from me, or they have a different preference, right? Could I give their choosing the space that it needs so I can honor what's important to me without taking things personally? Again, there's that taking things personally again. But we have to remember, right? Uranus is in Taurus, fixed sign, and the sun and moon and Mercury are in Aquarius, also fixed sign. So there is definitely a tendency to take things personally, right? So some other questions you can ask here is, what might become possible if I expressed myself fully, knowing that others may have a different opinion to me, and that's okay? That's, and again, it's that square. It's like, it's not, maybe not an exact fit. And how might that impact my current communities, whether they're physical communities like in person or online? How is that going to impact my communities, online communities or in-person communities? And we will see that play out there probably, right? Like we will see this challenge around, having your own values and your own preferences and wanting to fit in, that will definitely show up in the next 4 weeks after the new moon becomes exact. Now, Saturn, which is the traditional ruler of Aquarius, is going to be aligned with Pluto in Capricorn until February 19th. And this powerful combo, which started a new 34-year cycle on January 12th, is definitely asking us to face some harder issues in our lives, to really get very clear about what do I want this next 34-year cycle to be about, and what are some reality checks here. It's in Capricorn, and it's Saturn and Pluto are involved. So keep in mind that things sometimes need to break down in order for them to be rebuilt in a more sustainable way. And so on an individual level, this can be related to the area of life where Saturn and Pluto align in your birth chart. Collectively, it can show up in certain social or governmental structures. Now, if you would like to learn a little bit more about how that Saturn-Pluto alignment in Capricorn is impacting you personally, feel free to watch my webinar about those powerful transits as they relate to your own birth chart. You can purchase this webinar on my website. Feel free to just click on the link below this video. I will leave a link there that shows you where to click so you can get to that webinar page on my website and buy this, I think it's a 110-minute webinar. Now, the new moon also makes a sextile to Chiron in Aries, and so this presents an opportunity to connect with others and engage in a healing process around our personal identities that could bring us some progress. So ask yourself, what role do I identify myself with that needs my love and my understanding? And when we talk about roles that we identify with, it's like, who am I? And so if I had to say, who am I to another person, I would say, well, I'm an astrologer. So I identify as an astrologer. Who am I? I'm a life coach. So I identify also as a life coach. Who else am I? I'm a wife. So I identify as someone who's married to somebody else. Who else am I? I'm a daughter. So I'm identifying as a daughter. So there's all these different roles that we have in life. I'm a woman. I'm a human being. I'm a creative person. I am, whatever it is that we say I am, right? So these are all the roles, and there's multiple roles that we identify with. But which one of these roles needs our love and understanding right now? Where do we feel a little bit of an insecurity? Where do we feel a little bit of a pull, or a little bit of a wounding, a little bit of a re-wounding maybe, in terms of the things that we identify ourselves as? And what if taking a compassionate approach towards myself and others actually made for more fulfilling connections? So remember, Aquarius, we want to connect with other people. We want to connect to create something bigger, to do something more than what we can do on an individual level. So what if taking a compassionate approach towards myself and others actually made for more fulfilling connections? And how might a gentler and more holistic approach to my personal goals and aspirations create communities that support everyone's differences and unique quirks? And so we really have to look into that, right? That's a little bit of a complex question. So really see if you can answer this question slowly if this resonates with you. Because in my experience, I've always found that, if I can be gentle with myself, if I can try and see things from a more broader view, a more holistic approach. And when I say holistic, I really mean, like, what does this look like from a physical level? What does this look like from an emotional level? What does this look like from a spiritual level, from a mental or thought level? And so this is what we're talking about when we're saying holistic approach, because holistically means you're looking at it from all these different places, not just from one point of view. And so what might a gentler and more holistic approach to my personal goals and aspirations, or my personal projects that I have, create a community or create communities that support everyone's differences and unique quirks? So I think this is sort of like one of those questions we might have to sit with for a while and let ourselves really marinate in or journal on. Now, some other aspects in this new moon chart is Venus conjuncts Neptune in Pisces, and they both square Mars in Sagittarius, and they both sextile Jupiter in Capricorn. So let's unpack that. There's a lot going on here, right? So the Venus-Neptune alignment makes it easier for us to forgive others and ourselves. We can see the divine potential in others, and therefore we lean towards a more compassionate approach. So that should support some of the other stuff that we already talked about, right? This Venus-Neptune alignment. And you can ask yourself here is, what needs my forgiveness and higher love, myself included? Right? And so this is important, because when we talk about forgiveness, very often we think about other people. We think about who can I forgive out there in the world. But is there anything that I can forgive myself for, or that I need to forgive myself for? Anything that has occurred in the past, in the last, I don't know how old you are, but however old you are, from like 0 to your current age. What needs my forgiveness and higher love? And when I say higher love, I don't mean a personal love. So there's personal love and there's higher love. And personal love is like, the way you love your child, or the way you love your significant other, or the way you love your parent. It's a personal love between you and another person. Higher love is sort of like love. It's this vibrancy in you that comes from your heart that just connects with everything outside of you, or vice versa. Love that exists out there in the world that connects with you. So it's what we could also call universal love, higher love. It's just love as a whole, rather than personal love. I just wanted to distinguish that so that it's clear. Now, what needs to dissolve or melt away from my heart to be fully open? And so I think this is a really beautiful question because, sometimes our heart is really wide open and then sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes it's sort of like protected and tense, or sometimes it's hurting, sometimes it's dreamy, or it's kind of like whatever, out there. And sometimes it's just completely open where it's not anything. It's just wide open. So is there anything when you think about your heart, when you think about that space in you, is there anything that is asking to be dissolved or melted away so that the heart can be fully present and fully open with the world, right? And with your environment, with yourself. And that's very much, obviously Neptune and Pisces, very much about dissolving things, melting things away. So if there's anything that's sort of like sticky, or anything that's kind of like when there's tension or when there's density, Neptune and Pisces have the ability to just kind of melt it away. And then some other questions here is, what is my current relationship to the divine? Because of course Pisces has to do with our inner divinity, with our inner god or goddess, right? Depending on god, goddess. And in what ways could my imagination support that relationship? Now, just remember that imagination is really the key for us to connect to otherworldly things and to mystical things. It's the way to connect to our inner goddess. And so in what ways could my imagination support that relationship to the divine? And what might happen if I let myself be held by the divine? And that is a really beautiful question. I want you to close your eyes when you ask that question. What might happen if I let myself be held by the divine? And just see what that feels like as you're saying those words. And I think that is so beautiful. And might I be able to trust life and its mysterious ways more easily if I let myself be held by the divine? Okay, so let's go to the next part here, which is the square to Mars. So Venus and Neptune making a square to Mars in Sagittarius. Now this brings a strong urge to act out our fantasies or live out our dream. But we tend to feel a bit scattered. So we have to remember that Mars in Sagittarius is a mutable sign that's very all over the place. Venus and Neptune in Pisces, also a mutable sign, and can also be very sort of like not very good at staying committed to something, because it's very much about just wanting to integrate and wanting to connect and wanting to keep feeling into everything, right? So it's a scattered. These are both scattered energies because they're both mutable, and so as best as you can, slow down and listen to your intuition before aimlessly zooming ahead and inspire yourself and others. Neptune and Pisces and Venus in Pisces is very much about inspiring ourselves and others with our imagination, with our ability to dream, our ability to tap more fully into our intuitive sensing. And so really, before you do anything, before you go into action, tune in, right? So Pisces is introverted, Mars in Sagittarius is extroverted, right? So we have to we have to do both. We have to go within and then take action. And that would be the best way to work with that square. So it is challenging, right? It won't be easy. We might sometimes feel like we're doing too much and then we collapse and we have to take a nap or rest, or we have to meditate before we keep going. Now ask yourself here, am I over or underestimating my abilities and my capabilities? And this is definitely a valid question with this aspect. What if rushing was not the answer? So sometimes with Mars involved in a square, we get this like, gotta go, gotta do this, especially if Mars is in a fire sign, of course, which Sagittarius is. It is a fire sign. And then what if a simpler, quieter approach also supported my desire for exploration and adventure? So sometimes when we think of exploration and adventure, we think of that as like we have to go full out and we have to go full in. But because Pisces is involved here as well, maybe a simpler, quieter approach might support us in that also. So we may have to combine, the more fiery energy with the more subtler, watery energy, more introverted, subtle energy. And what if even small actions could produce profound results? And this is something, of course, that's hard for us to swallow sometimes in the Western world, right? Because in the Western world, we're so conditioned, go big, do more, do it all, right? So small actions, we're not very good at that. We're usually not very good at thinking of that as like being impactful. But what if even small actions could produce profound results? And it's something where we want to just kind of like shift our thinking a little bit maybe. Now, Venus Neptune also makes a sextile to Jupiter in Capricorn. So this is an opportunity to bring an intuitive, creative approach, Pisces, to building various foundations in our lives, both individually and collectively. And that's Capricorn. And so we have a unique opportunity right now to more deeply trust our inner processes, while also allowing the universe or source or our higher selves to step in and guide us as we expand certain structures in our lives that we've been already building for a while, but really bringing more expansion to those individually, collectively, and structures also that support something sustainable and long-lasting. And so really the key with Capricorn always is it sustainable? Is it long-lasting? Is it something that we can, build on? Is it a healthy foundation? So ask yourself, what does this look like for me in my life? What have I been building already? And where am I looking to expand? Or where are the structures in my life that I'm building that are sustainable and long-lasting, or something long-term that requires of me to really trust this inner process that's occurring with this? And how might I contribute to the collective version of that effort? Because this is not just going on within each of us, this is also going on a collective level, of course, right? Because it's Capricorn. Now, to sum it all up for this new moon, we are ready to change the status quo in our own lives and also collectively. And this could come with challenges and triggers. And it might bring up a nervous energy, or we might get impatient, or we might feel a little bit like anxious here. And so definitely bring as much objectivity to your interactions as possible. We also may experience sudden spurts of energy moving through our bodies. So we need to ground ourselves regularly, or we need to channel these disruptive energies that we might be experiencing in a healthy way. Like, the things that come to mind is like exercise, or, healthy debates, using our mind in some way, in a healthy way, brainstorming, about reforms or finances or things that we want to shift in our lives with other people, just doing some healthy brainstorming. But it could also be something physical, right? So something that really helps us channel some of these a little bit more jarred energies that are not necessarily a fit with each other into something that can be productive. So since we experience a need to connect with like-minded people while remaining objective, but we also want to break free from outdated value systems, we may have to directly address what we value both in others and in ourselves. And we have to be very clear about that. So ask yourself, what outdated values am I ready to set free? What am I still taking personally when it comes to other people's values? What if agreeing with other people's values was overrated? And what if disagreeing with other people was valuable to everyone involved? So when I say disagreeing, what I really mean is like, not in an aggressive way, not in a way where we have to offend people necessarily. But you can disagree with other people in a way where it can be really valuable, where it starts up a conversation. It starts up sort of like an inquiry into something where we also, we don't just disagree, but we also listen to each other. We also hear each other within that disagreement, where we can be adults instead of like 8-year-olds who just start throwing things at each other because we don't agree about something. But where we can actually take somebody else's opinion or worldview or something that they believe in and be curious about that and go, interesting that you think that. Well, I would have to disagree, and here's why. So what if disagreeing with other people was valuable to everyone involved? And what if diversity was the greatest gift we could give to each other at this time? What if time really was what heals all and brings wholeness to all? Time, right? Like giving ourselves time where we don't have to rush, or everything has to be right now, has to be exactly as we want it to be. And if that were so, if time really was the thing that heals all and brings wholeness to all, what if that were so, might this call for patience on my part? And I'm smiling because that's definitely a good one for me. I tend to be a little bit impatient sometimes. Now, how do I relate to the universe and my place within it? And that's a really wonderful question too, because, the universe is such a big place. It's such a vast place. And, if we think ourselves as like a part of that, and a part that actually is important and is a part that makes a difference. If I took myself out of this picture, if I took myself out of this universal connectivity that we all have with each other, right? If I were not there, then that would be a completely different universe. So how do I relate to the universe and my place within it? And do I believe in a universe that is alive and interconnected, or one that is random and separate? And honestly, we might believe both, right? Sometimes we might believe that it's alive and interconnected, and other times we might believe that it's random and separate, depending on where we're at with ourselves. And so just to gently kind of like let ourselves move into these questions and be kind to ourselves as we're exploring these questions, because it's an exploration. Now, if you have an ascendant or any personal planets in 2 to 7 degrees of Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, or Scorpio, then you are certainly going to feel the energy of this new moon more strongly. So I would definitely advise you to work with these coaching questions if that's the case for you. But even if you don't have personal planets or points like an ascendant or a career point in those degrees and signs, take a look at your natal chart, at your birth chart. Where does 4 degrees of Aquarius land in your birth chart? And the house placement of the new moon will indicate which area of life is most impacted for the next 28 days. And that's also how you can set your intentions more powerfully too, is if you look at that house placement, if you look at that area of your life. Now you can also check out my 30-minute class on how to read your birth chart if you never have done that before, if you've never looked at your own chart in that way. You can get free access to that particular class via my homepage at astrologercoach.com, and you just scroll down to the place where it says free class and click on that. If you've had some issues with that class in the last 10 days, then just know that there were some website issues that I've had, but they're fixed now, so everything's working again. So feel free to go back and watch that class if you weren't able to access it before. Now, before we talk about intentions, I just want to talk about 2 very brief things, which is our next forecasting forum is on February 9th. You can attend live or watch it as a recording. We will focus on the first Mercury retrograde phase of the year, which will be in Pisces. And we will also focus on Mars's transit through Capricorn, which will, of course, hit all of the Capricorn planets that are currently there already. So this is going to be a very powerful and very important time this year. So I would invite you to join us if you can. You will also get access to the next Members Full Moon video when you register for the Monthly Forecasting Forum, for those of you who are not yet star members. But if you join as a star member by January 31st, which automatically gets you access to the Monthly Forecasting Forums every month, you will also get a webinar for free that I recorded, which is called React versus Respond. And this is a webinar about learning about emotional maturity in our own birth charts. It's a fantastic webinar. I can only highly recommend it. You can also buy this on my website. If you don't want to become a star member, you can also purchase that by itself as well. Now, let's talk about intentions. And by the way, I will have links to all of these things below the video if you can't find it on my website. Look below the new moon video for all the links. All right, now intentions. The new moon, of course, is the best time to set powerful intentions for the next 28 days. So intentions are best done soon after the new moon becomes exact, not before, and definitely not during the moon void of course phases. So if you don't know when the moon void of course phases are, feel free to look that up via my weekly forecasts on my website. But I will also tell you right now that this month, the best time to set intentions would be any time between 4:42 p.m. on the 24th, January 24th, and 2:06 p.m. on January 25th. So we have a little bit less than 24 hours this time around because there's a very long moon void, of course, that happens after 2:06 p.m. East Coast time, New York time on the 25th. So after 2:06, we definitely don't want to be setting intentions anymore because of the moon void, of course, phase. Now, if you live outside the Eastern time zone and converting time zones isn't your thing, which you can do, of course, on the internet. But if you don't want to do that, I suggest joining me either on my Facebook fan page or following me on Twitter. I will be posting reminders to set your intentions on January 24th and 25th to let you know when it is time to set those intentions. Now, for more information about setting intentions, go to my website, to the blog page, and then look for astrology articles or for the tag that says New Moon Intentions. You will find that on the right side of the blog page if you're on a computer. If you're on a phone, you have to scroll down all the way down to the very bottom of the page of the blog page, unfortunately. Now, I will also have a link to this particular article below this video. So if you want to just click on that link, that's easy too. Now, to sign up for my free monthly newsletter, you can do that via my homepage at astrologercoach.com, or you can send me an email at info@astrologercoach.com and write in the subject line newsletter, and then you will be added to that mailing list. The newsletter is something that I offer once or twice a month. Sometimes it has special offers, it has videos, it has announcements about my business or my courses or my retreats. So anything like that, if you're interested in any of that, feel free to sign up for that newsletter. And then if you have any general questions about astrology or about the new moon, feel free to email me at info@astrologercoach.com. Personal questions that require for me to pull up your birth chart, feel free to book a reading via my website at astrologercoach.com. You can go to the reading page, which is underneath the services tab, or any question can also be answered during the monthly forecasting forum on February 9th, especially anything that's connected to what's coming up within the next 30 to 40 days that's connected to the Mercury retrograde phase in Pisces and the Mars transit in Capricorn. If there's anything you want to know about your own chart in relationship to those transits, feel free to ask those questions on February 9th. Now, you will also get access to the next Members Full Moon video when registering, like I said before. And then again, please remember that if you join as a star member by January 31st, you will also get the React versus Respond webinar for free. Okay, so that's it. My members will see me again in 2 weeks around the time of the full moon, so we can look at how far we have come since setting new moon intentions. And then everyone else who is not a member yet will see me in about 4 weeks for the next new moon video. All right, so have a good one. Have a fantastic new moon. Remember to set those intentions, make them powerful, connect them with your own birth chart and with the new moon energies. And I will see you again soon. This is Astrologer Coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.